At exactly 9:12 a.m., a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone, orbiting high above the village of Kusharver, spotted something that instantly froze the battalion commander in place. Three sharp thermal signatures moving inside a damaged house near the northern tree line. These weren't ordinary Russian troops. These were the same soldiers who had executed unarmed civilians just 48 hours earlier, before disappearing into the shadows, convinced they had slipped away unseen. What they didn't know was that Ukraine had already locked onto them, mapped every escape route, jammed their radios, and positioned artillery in a perfect arc around the village they thought they were hiding. In reality, they were surrounded by an invisible cage, one that was about to slam shut with devastating precision. And when the first Ukrainian shells hit the ground, it became clear there would be no rescue, no escape, and no second chance for the men who believed they could kill civilians and simply run. 2 days before Ukraine launched the strike, the quiet village of Kusharver witnessed one of the war's most senseless crimes. A Russian assault group moving through the area stopped at a cluster of homes, pulled civilians outside, and opened fire without warning, killing 3 and leaving 1 severely injured before vanishing back into the woods. When Ukrainian units arrived, they found the survivors shaken, the evidence undeniable, and the outrage immediate. For the commanders of the 132nd Independent Reconnaissance Battalion, this wasn't just another engagement on the map. It was personal. It was moral. It was a direct attack on the people they were sworn to protect. Within hours, Ukrainian intelligence identified the unit responsible and began tracking their movements. Following thermal traces, intercepted radio chatter, and drone footage until the trail led to a small house on the village's edge. From that moment, Ukraine's plan took shape. Isolate the killers, seal off the village, and execute a precision strike that would dismantle not only the perpetrators, but the entire Russian presence in the area. What followed was a blistering operation that fused drones, artillery, infantry, and electronic warfare into a single, unstoppable response. In the hours after the killings, Ukraine's intelligence network lit up like a storm front. Surveillance teams pulled drone archives, EW units searched for irregular radio traffic, and infantry scouts fanned out across the tree lines where the Russian assault group had last been seen. What they discovered was a patterned thermal traces moving between abandoned sheds, sporadic radio bursts on unsecured frequencies, and an intercepted transmission mentioning a return to shelter near Kusharver. The pieces aligned. The same soldiers who had fired on civilians were still hiding inside the village, waiting for nightfall to slip away. But Ukraine wasn't going to give them that chance. Recon operators rerouted a Leica 100 drone, pushing it deeper into fog and low cloud cover until its infrared camera finally spotted them, distinct signatures pacing inside a house, reinforced with sandbags. At that moment, the hunt ended. The execution of justice began. The moment the Russian locations were confirmed, the 132nd Battalion triggered a 3-layer strike designed to collapse the village around its occupants. First, the electronic warfare teams activated a full-spectrum jamming field, crushing every Russian radio channel inside a 5-kilometer radius. The soldiers inside Kusharver went instantly deaf. No orders, no updates, no warnings. Second, artillery units positioned on opposite sides of the forest synchronized their guns. Within seconds, a wave of 122mm and 155mm shells tore into the only dirt road leading out of the village, blowing craters so deep even armored vehicles would sink into them. Trucks exploded, supply routes vanished, and the Russians found themselves sealed inside a cage with no exits left. Third came the swarm FPV drones armed with compact H warheads launched from hidden pads around the village. Each one locked onto a target marked by UAVs, diving through smoke and debris to deliver precise, lethal strikes. As the last echoes of artillery faded, Ukrainian infantry units surged toward the village, advancing through smoke, shattered branches, and broken rooftops. They moved fast and surgically, following paths pre-marked by drones to avoid mines and booby traps. The air was thick with dust, the ground trembling from the earlier barrages. But the mission was clear. Clear every structure, secure every bunker, and isolate any pockets of Russian resistance. FPV drones continued flying overhead like mechanical hawks, diving into any window or trench where movement appeared. Ukrainian squads breached houses, tossing flashbangs into dark rooms where Russians hid behind overturned furniture or inside basements they thought would protect them. Some fought back, firing through cracks in walls, but their lines collapsed quickly without communication or reinforcement. Within minutes, Ukraine controlled most of the outer perimeter, squeezing the Russian troops inward toward the center of the village where their last defenses were falling apart. By mid-morning, Russian positions inside Kusharevar were splintered and collapsing. The remaining soldiers had to choices fight to the last breath inside. Burning homes or surrender while they still had the chance. Ukraine shifted its objective, prioritizing prisoners. A loudspeaker team advanced undercover, broadcasting a clear message in Russian. Kusharevar is surrounded. Drop your weapons. Walk toward Ukrainian positions unarmed. You will be treated under the Geneva Conventions. One by one, shaken Russian troops emerged from hiding places, some from crawl spaces, others from collapsed cellars. Their uniforms were caked in dust, morale shattered, and the realization of being abandoned by their command written across every face. In total, more than 50 surrendered, an astonishing number for such a small village. As the Ukrainian flag was raised over Kusharevar's damaged rooftops, it symbolized more than a tactical win. It was justice, delivered swiftly. It was a community freed, and it was a message Moscow could not ignore. Just 4 days later, dense fog rolled across the Pokrovsk-Shakov region, reducing UAV visibility to dangerously low levels. Russian commanders saw an opportunity, a rare window to strike, while Ukrainian drones were effectively blind. At 5:30 a.m., a mechanized column of 6 armored vehicles, including a turtle tank and several BMPs and BTRs, advanced silently along the forest line. Their plan was bold: push through the fog, bypass Ukrainian observation posts, and break into Shakov, a village whose position could fracture Ukraine's defensive line if lost. For nearly 3 miles, the convoy moved undetected. No drones overhead, no artillery thunder, no signs of Ukrainian infantry. The fog emboldened them, making the Russian crews believe they had finally outsmarted Ukrainian reconnaissance. But when they reached a small bridge east of Pankiv-Kawan, they believed intact. They found it collapsed, twisted into the river below. Their assault halted instantly, engines idling in panic, and that hesitation sealed their fate. With the bridge gone, Russian crews scrambled to decide their next move. Turning back would forfeit the attack. Advancing meant attempting a risky river crossing in near-zero visibility. Bound by orders, the convoy commander ordered the turtle tank forward into the river. It was the exact decision Ukraine had prepared for. The riverbed, soft, deep, unpredictable, swallowed the tank's tracks within seconds, dragging its nose downward. The vehicles behind followed blindly into the trap, their wheels and treads sinking, slipping, twisting sideways until the entire column jammed itself into the mud like trapped prey. And then Ukraine struck. From a hidden launch site less than a kilometer away, 4 FPV drones armed with PG-7VL anti-armor warheads lifted off and locked onto their targets. They descended with brutal precision, 1 into the turtle tank's flank, 2 into immobilized BMPs, and 1 into a BTR, blocking the retreat. In under a minute, Russia's spearhead was reduced to burning steel. By the end of those 4 days, the battlefield around Pokrovsk and Shakov had transformed from a stagnant front line into a landscape carved by precision, discipline, and unshakable resolve. What began with a brutal and senseless attack on civilians ended with a Ukrainian counter-operation so swift and calculated that it reshaped the entire regional balance. The killers who believed they could hide inside Kusharevar were hunted, cornered, and neutralized. 50 Russian troops were captured, their defenses shattered, their presence erased. And when Moscow tried to claw back momentum through a fog-shrouded mechanized push, they walked straight into a kill zone. Ukraine had already prepared an ambush that turned armored vehicles into smoldering ruins sinking in a riverbed. Ukraine didn't answer a war crime with a statement or a press briefing. It answered with a message engraved in steel and fire. If you attack civilians, justice will find you. It will surround you. It will end your mission forever.